Hi everybody, Kara St. Louis here, and once again I apologize for the foggy nature of the video. There's a lot going on in terms of equipment and internet tonight, but I can't let that stop me, and neither should you. Well, it has come to my attention recently that I've realized more than once lately that because we're constantly making new friends, people become interested in some facet of my work. Perhaps you've become aware of my original work on chemtrails or the enormous amount of work I did on social engineering. Maybe you read my books or one of my books and you don't realize there are others. It's a bit fragmented right now, and I'm trying to draw it all together for the sake of the work that we need to do now. Okay, the work of the mind, the work of the mind, the work of the words are done. The work of the heart needs to begin, the heart mind. So maybe it's my more recent ongoing research and work on the Fae that brings me to your attention. That would seem separate from the other things, but it's actually not. It's a real progression from one thing to the next. I am going to be talking about the workshops tonight, though. People have said, I've heard you talk about the workshops, but I really don't have any idea what they are. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight in context. Okay, so you know I've just come back, maybe you don't know, I've just come back from England to Maine. Maybe you knew me through my work on David Icke's channel, The People's Choice. I have lots of friends who I met in connection with that and only in connection with that. Or maybe you saw some of the interviews that I conducted and you liked my guests, and so that's how I came to your attention, okay? I have a few threads. I'm trying to weave all of that together into one website at the moment. We're working on that, okay? But I think what's going on is it really does matter that I reintroduce myself every once in a while, and I forget that. Right now, I want to direct you to my project, the project that's closest to my heart right now, aside from my Fae research, is called the Sovereign Imagination Studio Workshop. It's something I've been doing for a couple of years now in different ways, okay? And it's all based on the premise that the human imagination is the translator between the morphogenic field, which is pure potential, and the material plane. And the fact that we are the only creatures that can do that, and that is what brings us to the attention of some not so nice people, not so nice beings, and that's what launched the flood of attack on us for various reasons. We talk about that in my workshop as well. I've talked about that in several lectures, which are recorded and on my YouTube channel, which is called Hard True. All right, but first, what do you mean by this workshop? Sovereign Imagination Studio Workshop. All right, well, even the most awake human beings on the planet are still food for the parasites, gang. Even people who consider themselves to be awake. If you haven't done some really serious work on regaining control of your own thoughts, you're just offering the parasites a classier restaurant to dine at, okay? Carlos Castaneda knew we were food. He wrote about this extensively, as did many others. Our various outlets of expression have been farmed, really, for food. And the single most important thing for our adversaries is to keep us from doing anything about that. We're at that crossroads right now. That line has been drawn in the sand. The best way to accomplish stopping us is to hijack our thoughts, all right? Constant, unadulterated, screamingly intense distraction. You really can't hear yourself think anymore, can you? I know how to stop that, by the way. Imagine you gain control of your own thoughts. Imagine after the proper act of meditation was created together between you and me, with my guidance, that the outside chaos beings got bored and left you. Doesn't take very long. Imagine that in one act of will, you gain dominance over the inner predator you haven't even realized was there until now. Imagine you were able to return the idea of time to its rightful place in the human sphere. The currency of this universe is energy, after all. Time's a construct meant to keep an energy account, like a savings account, not for your use, as it should be, but for the use of those who feed off you. Imagine you could, out of habit, stand back from the immediacy, in-your-face, reactionary nature of your emotions, which they also feed off of, in order to understand what's really happening and act accordingly, if at all. act upon your sovereign choices at any moment. That's the harvest. I'll teach you what I know. You run with it. One small act of will, that's what changes it all for you. And that's Mount Everest for us because our will is completely damaged. Okay, so what is the workshop? I'm teaching a technique that is at least 100 years old, and it probably wasn't new then, okay? In the last 30 or 40 years, many of us have worked hard on breaking it down so that everyone can understand what it is, how to do it, and why it works. I've been practicing this myself for about 20 years. People are always trying to hijack this course and rebrand it. But the truth is, if you don't come to this honestly through a particular initiation or invitation, it will be taken away from you. So I don't worry about that anymore. It's like they invite some sort of negative rebound, these creeps. Listen, the only sin after all is theft. Think about that. Anyway, I started a few years ago trying to get this out to the general public. Anybody who felt drawn to me and my message and whose intuition said, take the course, I traveled around the world trying to deliver this in person. And that was great. I had a great time meeting everybody. But the reality is I can only really deliver the first bit to 15 or 20 people at a time as a class. And that's only 1/6 of the information I have to give you. So I started doing online groups again, but it really was only about the first part still because it was a group. And then I'd have to follow up, which is fine, or I'd move on to the next bits every once in a while. But I found this frustrating because the whole point is for me to tell you what I know, and then you run with it. It requires your active will. This is a sovereign project that I'm handing over to you. Our wills have been severely damaged, and the first Mount Everest, yes, the first Mount Everest is to sign up for the course. I get that. Then I help you scale each little Mount Everest after that. And truly, the only monster under the bed for any human being is the decision to act, and then the acting on the decision. My journey into the alternative community, in case you don't know me well, started with the brutal death of my mother in 2010. Since then, I've traveled through chemtrailing, magnetic weaponry, social engineering. My gosh, the work that I did on social engineering has been a vast network of logic and reasons why this seminar, this workshop is necessary, right? Then we talked about the false history, and eventually we got to our very barest beginnings with my research on the Fae, which has proceeded quite a bit in the last year and a half or so. And that, by the way, is a task they themselves have given me. So I've got 6 books on the shelf right now and 2 more on the way this year, in case you weren't aware of that. I have teamed up with some amazing alternative researchers to put together investigative trips to hidden occult sites, near and far. Have some more planned, but things right under our noses, as always, hidden in plain sight, breathtakingly esoteric occult truths. And by far the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, is to share what I know, to reveal the key to walking out of your cage. The door is already open. Let me help you see that. I'm on Facebook or YouTube under Hard True. I'm totally accessible. Climb that first mountain. Get in touch. Or my email, if you want, is worldlectures@aol.com. That's lowercases, one word, worldlectures@aol.com. So let's take each other's hand and walk through that door to freedom. That's what this is about, sovereignty after all. You get to captain your own ship again.